You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 464. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Kenny Wayne Shepherd. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm living the dream. I'm going to start off with something really silly, but maybe it sets the tone for my personality. I said my name is Brando, but I introduced myself Brandon. That's my name, Brandon Weissler. I changed. Really, nothing legally, but like just when I got into radio, just thinking Brandon Weissler doesn't sound cool. I want to shorten it and be like a one name Axel slash. But how did you decide? Because you're not Kenny, you're Kenny Wayne Shepherd. You're not Kenny W. Shepherd, like Samuel L.
Yes.
Jackson. It's
Right.
yeah, Kenny Shepherd. When did you decide the three names? Because that does sound cooler, I think, and a lot more professional than just the one name.
Well, originally it was going to be Kenny Wayne, and then and so like when I first formed my band, it was Kenny Wayne. That was it. And then there was a guy in Texas, this old dude that I guess had been performing under the name Kenny Wayne for I don't know, a few years prior to me. And he kind of came out of the woodwork and sent all these threatening letters like to my dad and stuff and threatened to sue us and saying I was trying to steal his identity and all this stuff. It was kind of bizarre. And then, we talked to some lawyers and they were like, hey, you could be Kenny Wayne in 49 out of the 50 states, but possibly in the state of Texas, because that's the one state that this guy's actually been performing in, is that, he may have a legitimate claim to that name. So, as just to avoid any potential problems, I just went ahead and added Shepherd, and which is my mom's maiden name, because my legal last name is like a Dutch German descent. It's Brobst, and it's like 90% of people can't pronounce it when they see it, and that's not good for show business either. So I decided to use my mom's maiden name, Shepherd. So really, it was going to be my first and middle name, and then we added on the last name.
I'm sorry if that's a silly question, but I appreciate that because I didn't want to go by Brandon Neil Weissler. It didn't flow off. It doesn't. I really do sound like a Long Island son of a dentist. Like Brandon Neil Weissler, little Jewish boy. But Kenny Wayne Shepherd has always sounded great to me since I've just been a fan for a while. And just congratulations on what number album is this going to be? Dirty on My Diamonds, Volume 2. Which comes out September 20th. So what number is this for you, studio record?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't counted them lately. I want to say it's probably around maybe 14 or something like that. Could be more. I'd have to pull them all up and count for you. But people also ask me pretty frequently how many guitars do I own, but I've never pulled those out and counted them either. So
okay.
I don't know, but I know that it's a good body of material that we've created over the years, and I'm really proud. I'm just as proud of the new stuff as I am of the older stuff, and I feel like we're putting out, some of our best music nowadays. And this record is, obviously exciting for me because, it's the first time we've done a volume 1, volume 2. Volume 1 came out in November, and, we're out touring, playing several songs. More than half that record has been put into the set list that we're doing currently. And then volume 2 is coming out in September, and that's going to, carry us into next year, where we'll be touring and playing those songs or songs from both of these records, along with a whole slew of songs from our catalog and songs that people have been listening to on the radio for many years now. But it's always great to have new material. It infuses new energy into the set, and especially for the fans that have come to see us many, many times, it gives them a new experience.
I'm not just saying this because I'm privy to it. I know it comes out in September, but I get to the stream it when I interview people earlier, before the record comes out. It's really good. It's really good. I'm eager for people to hear this, to hear this new record. And it's quite a variety of, it's the Kenny Wayne Shepherd band, but not every song is different. I mean, while it has the core, you might feel something, a little ZZ Top in one. You might feel, a little bit of country in another. I even got like Silverchair vibes from which is funny. Like I don't know why I was listening to one of the slower songs. I think my guitar is crying, and it just
Mhm.
sounded like a slower Silverchair song. Just like use a loose example of just a different sound. So how do you approach that? I mean, there's a horn section, and how do you pick the vocals? I guess for each sound of which one you're gonna sing, and which ones Noah's gonna sing. So all of that. How do you approach just like the whole sound of this record? And I guess you could call it a double record if you want, right?
Yeah. Well, going back to, since the whole Guns N' Roses thing, obviously with the name of your podcast and
Right.
all of that. But
We'll get
like,
to that.
I remember Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. And that was actually one of the things that made me want to do this, which is, Dirt on My Diamonds, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And we did a similar kind of approach in the album artwork, where it's like, we didn't use the exact same artwork for both volumes, but it's similar enough. And we did, did two different color schemes, but I mean, it's just not something that's really been done frequently. So I thought it was a compelling idea to do a volume 1 and volume 2. And a lot of these songs were written at the same time in the same writing session. So they do have kind of, a thread running through the entire body of material. As far as the horn section goes, that's something that started back on the Traveler record that came out in 2019, where I was doing that record, and there was a lot of really kind of rocking songs on that album, and I brought horns in to play on a couple of songs, and then I just thought, I was like, well, I wonder what it would be like if I actually put them on every song. It was really just kind of a curious experiment for me, and then I had them play, song by song on every song on that record, and then ended up keeping them and going, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And there's not a lot of people doing horn sections nowadays, and especially not in like blues rock or rock band type situation. So I felt like it set us apart. And then I've just continued that like into the albums that have come since the Traveler record. And so they're on both of these records. They're not on every song, but almost every song. And that's something that we do last. We go in and we write the songs, and we record the songs, and we do it, as a band in the studio. But the horn sections you don't track with the band. You end up putting them on after the fact. And those guys wrote their parts out, and then they would bring them into the studio and they play them. And then we would either approve what they had come up with because it was great, or maybe fine tune or, massage a few parts here and there. But the end result is cool, man. I mean, those guys play great parts, really kind of added something to the music, added something different to it, and helped elevate it.
You made the reference before I did. I know it's the quote unquote GNR elephant in the room, but it is very use your illusion-y with the horn section and mixing the blues rock with that, which obviously is a sound that I love and it isn't very prevalent in today's music. So I think it's just amazing that you're continuing to bring back what's, I guess, if you want to call it classic sound, but it sounds very new. I mean, I know it's literally new, but it sounds very modern at the same time. Is that something that's presence of mind too, or do you always stick to, hey, this is what we do, or do you look to see what the current trend is to kind of maybe not guide you, but just to be aware of it and maybe think about, what else could I do to be 2024 today, if that makes sense.
No, I actually don't, especially when I'm writing songs and making new records, I don't listen to any current music because I don't want that. Like, anything you listen to has the ability to find its way into what you're creating.
Yeah.
And I mean, historically, like, I mean, I think you hear it all the time, like where people will write a song and you go, oh, that sounds so much like this other song. And it's like, a lot of times people can write songs that'll sound similar to other songs, and it's not even intentional. And they might not even realize it at the time. But like, it's because they heard that song 40 years ago, and it's like, back there, in their subconscious, and it comes out at some point. But I don't really listen to anything current when I'm trying to write new music, because I want what I'm doing to be as authentic and as new and original for what we're doing as possible. And I just feel like it's going to sound current because of my formula for my music has always been to take something old school, like blues music as the foundation of the music, and then try and bring it into something new and different by mixing it with different genres and influences that I've had over the years. And, I mean, in the early days, it was going to sound young and different and current because I was young and different and current. And now I guess I'm still young, maybe by blues standards, but I'm getting older, but like my approach to music has still kind of remained the same over the years. And so I feel like what we're doing sounds just, for the genre, sounds fresh and sounds different and sounds exciting and energetic, and it's also just kind of the energy that we put into it. And actually, going back to one of your previous questions, which I kind of didn't answer completely, like as far as the vocals go, because I've evolved into this in the early days of my career. I was the guitar player. The band was my band, and it was all about the guitar playing, a la Santana, Jeff Beck, people like that, Eddie Van Halen. But as the years went by, I started singing, and I started singing lead vocals more and more. And now it's evolved into a situation where we have two lead singers, where I'm singing lead vocals and Noah sings lead vocals. And so when we go in the studio to make new music, it's not always predetermined. I can kind of tell when we write a song who it's probably going to be best suited for their voice, whether it's me or Noah. But it's subject to change in the studio, and we just kind of take it one track at a time. But when we're recording the songs, Noah initially sings all the vocals, because we play live as a band in the studio, because I want to capture that live sound. That's the essence of what we do best. And so I'm really focusing on the guitar part. So Noah will sing the vocals, the scratch vocal or the guide vocal, whatever you want to call it, for every song. And then we'll go back and I'll go, I think I could really deliver this song, or I think I might be good on that song, or and then I'll give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then we throw it back to Noah. If it does work, sometimes I think Noah's going to be the one to sing a song, and then I go, man, I don't know. We should see what my voice sounds like on that, and then I'll give it a shot, and maybe that is more appropriate for that particular song. But it's great to have two lead singers with two really different voices in the band, because it broadens the amount of material that we're able to do.
It really does. I mean, that's why every track, while you know what the core is of the sound, like you're kind of guessing, and it's kind of the excitement of what an album used to be. What's to come, what's next. So that is cool, and it's you say the early days. So when did you start? Like 13, 14 professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I got on stage, and for the first time when I was 13 years old. I did my first demo recordings at age 14, and I formed my own band at age 15, and started doing shows under my own name at age 15. And then I signed my record deal at 16, and then started writing songs and recorded my first album when I was 17. And I graduated high school, turned 18, hit the road, and never looked back. So I'm 47 years old now, so I've been doing it a while.
That's cool. I'm 40, so I mean I'm a little younger than you, but I mean I've gotten to see you kind of grow up. You're always someone that was more tangible as a rock star to me growing up, because you were so young. Like saying, "Oh, he's just not that much older than my cousin," or something like that.
Um,
It's just very cool to see. What would you say? Obviously, there's so many different things, but like, is there a big difference? Is it just the technology and social media that's changed from when you started to now?
Oh, no, everything's changed. I
Everything.
mean, it's crazy. We made my first album, Live Better Heights, before Pro Tools existed. There's
Mhm.
no such thing as recording on computers when I did my first record. And by the time that record came out, and then we did the tour for that record and went in to do the second album, Pro Tools had hit the scene. And that was new technology, and it was like cutting edge, and we were all just kind of exploring it at that point. That was in 97. So, everything's changed, from how records are made to how records are consumed to how people discover music to how artists promote themselves and do I mean, just like everything has changed. I mean, and some maybe for the better and some not, I miss the days, and maybe I'm a dinosaur, because of it. But like, I miss the days of people, being able to go and put a record out and get it, service it to radio stations, and watch your single run up the charts, and watch people the first week's sales of an album, where people would literally go out and buy your record, and you could see the numbers come in of how many people bought your record that week. It's like none of that stuff happens anymore. It's like the day I have gold and platinum albums hanging on my wall, and I think the days of platinum records for artists doing music like what I do is over, because the formula is just so different, and it's just so much harder. Like, if you look up the numbers of what it actually takes in the streaming world for you to actually be considered to have a gold record, like 500,000 album sales, like 500,000 people, or if one guy buys 2 copies, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that would equal a gold album. But now I think in order for you to reach 500,000 sales based on streaming, you have to have like 750 million streams of your record or something. It's just ridiculous. So
Wow.
that whole thing is weird. But the power has been kind of put into the hands of the artist in ways that it never was before, because you had to sign a record deal before, because you didn't have a marketing team, you didn't have connections with radio stations to get your music on the radio. A lot of people didn't have the money to be able to afford to go in the studio and make an album. So you needed record companies more then than you actually do now. So like now you can record. I mean, every laptop that every computer that's made has some form of recording software on it. People make records in their bedroom now, and it doesn't hardly cost them anything. So that's cool. That's power to the artist. Then you have social media platforms that doesn't, generally doesn't cost you anything, at least not in the beginning, to start building an audience and getting your music out there. Maybe something goes viral and then you get discovered because of that. So there's a lot of different ways that and tools that the artists have now that can work to their benefit. But I miss kind of the old school, the golden era of the music industry, as I kind of see it.
No, I'm with you. That's why I don't accept the label because again I'm 40 as millennial, because I'm not whatever, no matter what chart tells me, because I'm with you. Because I remember even when I started in college with radio, it wasn't automation yet. I'm still playing records and CDs, and it's all about being at the radio station, like you said, where it's all about playing the new song. And then now, I mean, yes, while I still work at iHeart and there's a studio in Midtown Manhattan, I'm right now at home recording with my laptops and mixer and stuff, and
Right.
with my equipment that's right in my PC, or my laptop rather. So yeah, there's while I miss the old, it is interesting to be able to see what you are able to do now. And anybody can podcast, anybody can make a record, but I think just the cream rises to the top. And again, it's very cool that you started when you were 13, 14, and you're still doing it today, because that's not always the path for people. It's
Yeah.
just, okay, here's this cute little kid playing guitar, and then Lord knows what happens to him. The fact that you're doing it today, new record is great, new music as great as ever, is, I don't know, it's like a testament to just you as a person who could have been swallowed up whole by the industry that young.
Yeah, well, the
You ever
odds
think
were
about
really
that?
stacked against me if you think about it. I mean, when I signed my record deal, I was a teenager. I was an unknown artist. Only people in my region really had a clue who I was. I was a guitar player that didn't sing, right? Doing blues music as a kid. And blues music never really was the most popular genre, right? So, I mean, the odds were certainly stacked against me as far as success went. But for some reason, the music that I wrote and recorded and put out there, there was an audience that connected with it. And the great thing about this kind of music is that, a lot of people who become blues fans or fans of, blues rock or just rock in general. I mean, just like, this is a timeless genre, and people kind of become fans for life. And so, that's really, it's the fan base that's enabled me to have a career that's lasted this long, because radio is what launched my career. Like, we had massive success at radio, and so many top 10 rock singles. I mean, Blue on Black, when it was number one, it was setting records at the time, for how many weeks it was at number one. It was rock song of the year at the Billboard Music Awards. I mean, all this stuff. But after things started changing, and album sales started declining, and terrestrial radio starts to kind of take a backseat to streaming platforms and stuff. It's like a lot of people could get lost in the shuffle with that, but having the support of the fan base that we have, is really, what's given me the opportunity to have a career that's, it's going on 30 years now. And you couldn't ask for more than that, really, with as an artist, to have a fan base that kind of has backed you up for 3 decades. And no matter what kind of records we make, I mean, some records, the one fan's going to like one better than the other, but I think ultimately they want to see an artist pursue whatever music they're inspired to write and record, instead of just trying to stick to a certain pattern that might have been successful for them in the past, because then everything becomes predictable. So, they've enabled me to follow my inspiration and to continue entertaining them, for going on 30 years now. And I mean, that's really what it's all about.
And speaking of the fans, I hope you don't mind. I want to ask a couple of questions via the fan that I got to relay to me. This is from Mark Lamb from Central Indiana. He remembers you that you were the opening act of Van Halen's very last tour. What memories of interacting with Eddie Van Halen do you have, and perhaps any memories of the last concert or just the tour in general, perhaps?
Oh man, I mean, well, we toured with them back in the '90s when it was Van Halen 3, and they had Gary Sharon singing in the band for a brief moment, and then we toured again with them on the very last tour in 2015. And Ed and we have become friends on that first tour in the '90s, and our family had history going back, to, like, when I was a little kid. My dad knew the Bertinelli family, and my dad was kind of there the evening, and somewhat involved in Valerie Bertinelli and Eddie Van Halen meeting for the first time at a concert in my hometown in Shreveport, Louisiana. So we have all this interesting history that goes way back. But he and I became friends on the tour that we did together in the '90s, and stayed friendly for all those years in between. And then I got to do that last tour with them, and every single day, man, he came and found me wherever I was at. When he was on site, he would come looking for me, and he would come give me a hug, and we would sit down and we would talk, and just um, shoot the breeze, and whatever. And he was just always very outgoing when it came to me. And I mean, there's like, what I've learned in my life is you hear stories like about people, and a lot of times people only tell the stories that, the bad stories, because it kind of makes for a good headline or whatever. But I've always found that, like, when I had somebody tell me they had this horrible experience with this person, if I met that same person, generally my experience wasn't the same. And so I've learned not to judge people based on other people's experiences. And I had nothing but great experiences with Eddie. He was always just, couldn't have been a nicer guy to me.
And that's what I try to do here. That's why I call, other than the clever pun, but distortion. I don't like the negative press. I try to avoid that at all costs, because that's not what I'm about. I don't like putting the interviewee in that position. So is there a misconception about Eddie that yeah, I guess that you already answered it. It's just a misconception about like what kind of person he was, that he was standoffish, but he was just very friendly to you and
Well, I
and
think I think people can often mistake shyness with being standoffish.
yeah.
You know, I think he was not, I don't think he was a big crowd person. I don't think he was, I mean, a lot of really famous people are not very social people. And it doesn't make them an asshole. It just means that they're not very social people. A lot of people like to keep to themselves. A lot of them are not very outgoing people in private settings, but on stage they're larger than life. I mean, I can relate to a lot of that stuff. So I think there's just a lot of misconceptions, and then people expect, there's these expectations that are thrown on celebrities. It's like, you know, you expect them to be a certain way. And when they're not that way, then people will judge them. And it's like, but why do they have to be that way in order for you to be okay with it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I mean, and also, you know, I mean, he's obviously very convicted in his music and stuff like that. And then within his band, I don't know. I mean, maybe he was very assertive. I don't know. I was never involved in any of that kind of stuff with them. All I know is the man that I knew was like couldn't have been nicer to me, and was a really seemed like a very kind-hearted guy, an incredibly talented individual. And you know, like I said, I mean, media outlets just often they just are looking for the opportunity, you know, for somebody to say something
I
that
know.
they might be able to plaster as clickbait, you know, just to get people to read their stories and stuff, and just to get people to start trash talking each other.
Yeah.
But he never trashed anybody. Like, you know, to me, he never was talking trash about anybody. All those guys were nice to me. I mean, on the first tour, Mike Anthony, Alex Van Halen, Eddie, Gary Sharon was fine too. On this last tour, I saw Wolfgang all the time. I saw Alex frequently. I saw Ed every day. The one guy I'd never saw, never said hello to me or anything like that was David Lee Roth. So I can't speak to him because I never met him. Like, you know, his guys were always trying to, like, if he entered the building, it was like he's entered the building, everybody clear the room. You know, that there was definitely a difference between my interactions with Eddie and then the way that David Lee Roth seemed to uh, approach things. You know, but I'm not gonna judge that guy because I'd never actually had an interaction with him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Another to completely shift gears fan question from Jeff Beers from Michigan. He wants to know about the music you did for Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker movie. And as a, you know, comic book and cartoon kind of guy, I'm interested as well. How did that happen?
You know, they just approached me about that. They were doing it, and I don't remember who it came through. If it came through the record company or the publishing company or whatever. But you know, when you're an artist, you often get a lot of propositions or a lot of things sent your way. And they asked me if I'd go in the studio and record the theme song for that thing, and so it was cool. I went into the studio at the Columbia. Yeah, was it? I'm trying to remember now off the top of my. Well, anyways, it was in Los Angeles, and it was just like a 1 day recording session, man. And I went in and cut that thing. I mean, I didn't write the music; the music had already been written, so I just had to play on it. But it was really cool. It's one of those things that when you do something, you go, "Yeah, sure, man." I mean, I like Batman. I mean, I like comic book stuff, but so why not? But it's one of those things, like, you never know. You do something and then you never realize. But that thing has been brought up so many times over the course of my career. You just never, when I did it, I never thought that maybe, you know, 25 years later, people would still be asking me about it, you know, but it's just one of those things that stuck.
Yeah, it's just a cool random thing that I didn't know. So Jeff brought it to my attention. So I heard it, you know, all those years ago, didn't put two and two together. So it's one of those things. It's just pretty cool that you to find out that you did that. One
Yeah.
last one, I guess, from my end, the appetite for distortion end. So obviously you can tell with the name of the podcast, my paraphernalia behind me, if you're looking, uh Guns N' Roses themed podcast where I use 6 degrees of GNR bacon to kind of make connections to all my guests to the band. Let me know if you have more, but the one that was obvious was this was back in 2016. I don't know, it was like 10 years ago. That there was an icon, the life and legacy of BB King.
Mhm.
It was you, it was Slash, and a lot of other incredible guitarists were up there as well. Uh, Susan Tedeschi, you know, if you can talk about that performance and perhaps any other 6 degrees of Guns N' Roses bacon you may have.
Well, yeah, well, that thing, I mean, I think that was an event that was put on by the Grammy
Yeah.
organization. And yeah, it was just all of us. I mean, but every person that was there that night had a connection to BB King, had toured with him, had played with him at some point, including Slash, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of actually pretty well-known videos out there online of Slash jamming with BB and stuff. But I mean, Slash and I've known Slash, man, for a long time. Like the first time I came to Los Angeles and played the House of Blues on the Sunset Strip, we were, I don't remember if it was before the show or like during the show, but it's like somebody came up to me and was like, dude, Slash is in the house. He wants to get up and jam. And I was like, really? And he got up and played with us. That like I don't even know if we were introduced. And I was like, hey, Slash is in the building. And he hopped on stage and we jammed out. We became friends, from that point forward. And then he and I ran into one another. We played the James Brown birthday celebration concerts down in Augusta, Georgia, a couple of times together, and sat in with James and went out and that was back when I was partying and drinking. And so, we went out and hit the town together down there in Georgia. And then
Man.
we've just kind of maintained a friendship, from that point forward, like for many, many years, even to this day. I still call him a friend and still run into him and talk to him from time to time. And I've run into several of those guys. Like I've run into Duff a couple times over the years, and then Matt Sorum, who was their drummer there for a while, is a good friend of mine. But never met Izzy or never met Axel. But I mean, I grew up rocking out to their stuff. I mean, dude, when those guys hit the scene, I mean, to me, it was like Guns N' Roses was as mind blowing as Nirvana. When that band came out and you heard that sound, it was like, whoa, dude, who is this? It's like kind of the same thing when Nirvana hit the scene and the whole grunge thing just exploded. And people are like, who is this? What is this sound? And it's just so interesting to see those guys like feuding for so many years and like relative. I mean, how many records did they make before it all just blew up? Right? They didn't make a whole.
Nope.
Yeah, what
Like,
was it, like 4 albums or something?
I mean, if you want to count, I'll skip the EP. I mean, you got Appetite, you got Lies, which counts as the EP. I mean, then you got the Illusions 1 and 2, and then you got the Spaghetti Incident, and then they broke up. Now,
Yeah, dude. And then all that time, nothing. And then so, somehow they mended it. And then look at them. It's like this massive freaking tour. And their music is timeless, bro. I mean, it's timeless rock and roll. So yeah, but I don't have any really crazy GNR stories to tell other than, my first meetings with Slash and getting to know him and, really just like being able to call him a friend, for decades now. And he's a great dude. And he's one of those guys. He's not a one-trick pony. I mean, he'll get up on stage with BB King. He'll get up on stage and jam with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and then he'll get up there and play "Welcome to the Jungle" and write songs like that. It's like he's a well-versed musician without a doubt. There's a lot of depth to what he does.
and speaking of that well versed, I'll just piggyback on that before I let you go, because Slash, of course, the blues based guitar rock, which obviously my wheelhouse is why I love the Kenny Wayne Shepherd band. But he's now, I mean, he's put out a record, a blues record, Orgy of the Damned, and
Yeah,
going out on this Serpent tour, which I'm going to go to in New York City when they play Pier 17 in August. Um, why didn't he call you? He's one of the
yeah. No, they did actually. They did. I think there was like a conflict or whatever with their dates versus things that I have going on. But we definitely got a phone call about that tour, and there was some talk about it. But I think at the end of the day, it just didn't. It logistically didn't work out. But I think it's awesome, man. I mean, again, guys like him, he has an audience. There's probably a lot of people that dig what he does and the music he's made over the years that maybe haven't been turned on to blues music yet. So it's always great when you get a guy like that who has a real appreciation for the genre that does something like this that brings more attention to it, because that just keeps the blues music relevant and keeps it moving forward.
Completely agree, and that's exactly what you're doing as well. So I mean, I hope it's the first of many. If Slash does another tour or a record, you're involved, because that's when you mention blues rock and you're one of the first names. I mean, I'm talking obviously we're not talking like BB King and Muddy Waters. We're talking about today who's playing is Kenny Wayne Shepherd. So that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you today. So that is cool to know that he did call you. And yeah, you're out on tour. I was hoping you would play closer to me here in Queens, but you're playing the part of New York that's basically Canada. So I gotta hope for I gotta hope for you to add more dates, but I gotta imagine you'll make your way back to New York or Long Island soon enough. Um,
Yeah, we just played the Beacon Theater back in March, I think it was, and then
okay.
I think we're planning on coming back to the Beacon again. I don't think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be not next year because next spring we're gonna be doing possibly another run of the Hendrix tour, but I think maybe the following year. So just be on the lookout. We'll be returning to the Beacon Theater for sure in the near future.
Maybe you have advice. I didn't look this up. Are you a parent? Do you have any?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I have a 1-year-old. He's 14 months now, and this year I've been convinced not to bring him to the blues festival. We're kind of maybe up close, and even though he would have headphones, do you have advice of like when? Because maybe it's good that I have to wait to see Kenny Wayne Shepherd because I want to start taking him to all these concerts. Like, when did you start taking your kids? Did they start going to your shows right away with the headphones? Do you have any?
My kids have been, they would come out on tours with me and stuff. And yeah, we'd put the headphones in their ears and earplugs and stuff like that. But my dad was taking me to concerts. Supposedly, like I don't have a real memory of it, but my dad tells me that my first concert was to see Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker when I was 3 years old. And
Okay.
so, look at me, I play blues music. So it's like, that I think very much believe that planted a seed that played itself out in my musical life, And so I don't think it's ever too early. I mean, you look at a baby, just play music around the house, you watch them start moving their bodies and stuff. I have 6 kids, I've seen it. And it's like,
Okay.
they don't even know how to talk, but they hear music and their body starts moving to the music. So music really it affects all people. And I don't think it's ever too early to expose your children to music. But if it's loud music, you just want to make sure you got the protect their hearing for sure.
Actually, no, you're completely right because we've had so much Blues Clues and Sesame Street, so we just started playing like even just the Ramones, and it'll start like moving his butt up and down. It's kind of great.
Yeah.
And I knew about that about the kids because you have your your wife, your father-in-law is Mel Gibson, and I know you have kids, so that's the one last thing. Do you ever that must be very intimidating, no? Like to have Mel Gibson as your father-in-law?
No, my wife and I, we've been together. We started dating 21 years ago, so we've been
I mean,
together for
maybe
a
not
long time.
now, but at the beginning, it's just like
No,
the guy from Lord of
no,
the Rings. No?
yeah, I know, no, but you got to understand. Like, I grew up around a lot of really famous faces. Like, I mean, like James Brown is one of the most iconic, you know, people. Like everybody, you see that guy, that's James Brown, BB King. I mean, whoever it is, ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons, like all these people. Like even before I was doing music, I was going to these shows with my dad, and my dad always had backstage passes and meet and greet passes because he was the general manager of the radio station in town. And so, like, I was behind the scenes and meeting all these famous people at a very young age. So I at a very young age realized that famous people are still just people, and it kind of like, took the I don't know, the shock out of it all for me
Fair
at a
enough.
very young age. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's a very well thought out answer, and you were mature from a young age. Jeez, when I was 13, I was nervous to give my bar mitzvah speech. You were like, you left you to understand. It's so true.
I
It's
hear you,
funny.
man.
Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Thank you so much to Kenny Wayne Shepherd Band. Uh, Dirt on My Diamonds Volume 2 comes out in September. Volume 1 is out now. So thank you so much for your time today. Hope you
Hey,
got
thanks for having me. I
no
appreciate
problem.
it.
Hope we get to do this again. So that does it for this
Absolutely.
episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will we see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.